This is my final reflection for the multimedia project. And for my project, I designed a wiki space for formative assessment for teachers. Um, so a couple of things I guess I will do. First, I'll go through the objectives for my proposal. Um, so one of my objectives was that teachers will review and identify different aspects of formative assessment. So under the navigation page, I have a page here called What is Formative Assessment? And I included a PowerPoint that I designed and two narrated screencasts of those PowerPoints that give background information for the the different kinds of assessment, both formative and um, summative assessment, and how teachers can use formative assessment in their classrooms and what exactly it does. My next objective is teachers will identify methods or a method of formative assessment that aligns with their educational philosophy, course outcomes, and student needs. So again, in this first part, it's just kind of what is formative assessment. The second part gives some examples. I also gave them a specific idea of a technology they could use as formative assessment. That's Poll Everywhere in here, in case teachers are somewhat aligned with using technology and getting kind of instant feedback to see where students are. But I also included some other resources that are kind of lower on the technology end where teachers can just um, implement these with paper and pencil, just kind of different checklists or different ways to check for understanding um, from around the web. So it was just a way to gather some information for students for that purpose. Or I'm sorry, for teachers for that purpose. My one of my objectives, it's not really an objective, but instruction will happen via pre-recorded screencasts. And so if I go back to the Poll Everywhere, this is a screencast and the other ones were screencasts. And then one of my other objectives was that teachers will share experiences using these methods on a wiki or some other interactive page. And so I included a discussion board here. Um, I might, I just added a statement where they can record their discussions um, to reflect on their experiences. But in a future iteration of this, I might add more specific details or specific things that direct teachers, like if they're using Poll Everywhere or if they're using one of the other methods like a classroom assessment technique or something like that, where they could include, and be directed to there. But for now, it's just kind of a general discussion page. One of my objectives was to evaluate, using a survey to evaluate the effectiveness of this module. I actually didn't do that, and instead I decided to collect some data using formative assessment. I'm sorry, to collect some data about where the teachers are with using formative assessment. And I think that this is really important because this would help me add more information to develop kind of the ideas and the content that would be in here. I definitely could add another survey later on to see, what they thought or how effective this was, but I actually did not do an evaluative survey for this one. It's more of a data gathering. I know one of the questions that came up from some people was I used Google Forms for this survey, and a couple people, I think Peter and um, Professor Lucci, were asking why I used Google Forms and not SurveyMonkey, and it's a really interesting question. I didn't really think much about. I've used SurveyMonkey before. However, I haven't had the opportunity to use Google Forms for anything for that matter. So I decided to choose that because I haven't used it yet, and it is the program or the application that we use primarily at work. So I wanted to familiarize myself a little more with that and not use SurveyMonkey, which I do think is a really effective tool. Um, so let's see. Um, so a few other things I just wanted to go over with the overall design of the page. I did include this home page. I actually edited out this, and I'm not sure why it came up again on this. I guess it did not save here. I'm hoping that with this version, yeah. So I created an overall home page that has um, I guess a graph you could say that shows the role of feedback in students obtaining goals and the role of feedback in practice in students obtaining learning goals. This was from a book called How Learning Works by Ambrose et al. I actually took it from a blog that a friend of mine wrote and designed from the Teaching and Learning Center at Temple University. One of the other suggestions that people had were to include more images. So again, I just kind of included this in here. This image didn't have an image there. I included this image and cited it here and provided a link down here. I have another image of a student or like mentor working with a student. For the Poll Everywhere, I provided the image of the logo, and then a teacher maybe not using Poll Everywhere, but using clickers and kind of getting that data, getting that feedback, so that gives a sense of what that does. And again, an image of a student and a teacher in conference, and another student and teacher in conference for some of the resources. And then lastly, again, this idea of students and teachers talking, and I try to include those images because I feel like that's such an integral part of formative feedback, giving students this explicit, direct feedback that they need to, you know, perform and do well on their assessments. That's the role of formative assessments. It's giving that kind of feedback that they can use. So for the next couple of points, I'm just going to talk about some of the other ideas we're asked to reflect on. As for the view of I'm sorry, as for the role of technology in teaching and learning, I definitely feel like it's integral for both students and instructors in this case. I think in a lot of ways that students are looking for videos, tutorials, other kinds of information, and especially if you're dealing with adult learners or older learners, they're looking for more of that autonomy and self-directed or self-guided learning. So I feel like in some respects this provided my learners hopefully with a tool that they could use on their own. I definitely appreciated the idea that we could use technology to create, videos and other kinds of audio screencasts that it's not so static as well. That I also provided a space for teachers to discuss. I did lock my other pages here. I know that was something that a couple people recommended, locking these, but I think in some ways I would also like to open this one up to be able to give people a space to provide resources, and maybe that's again another part of a discussion board. But I think that this is another important aspect of technology, that it provides a space where there's more interaction, and a place where teachers, in my case, but students as well, can discuss, interact, and share ideas and practices and reflect on them as well to gain some better ideas. So what I accomplished for this project, I feel like I have a tool that I can share with some of the teachers that I work with. I have shared some of these informally with some of the teachers, but it would be nice to have a space where I could direct them and get some feedback about that. Um, I think overall it was fairly easy. I kind of had a general idea of what I was going to do, and some of the things that took the longest were doing the screencasts and kind of typing up my notes for those and practicing them. Um, yeah, and then in this final draft, one of the suggestions was to add some pictures, which again is what I did. I don't usually think about that's kind of the last stage for me, and that was kind of a challenge to find some pictures. I had some that I used on other projects, and I applied those, and I had to look for some other pictures, but overall that. As for the design process, I didn't think too much about colors. I just kind of kept the color scheme the way it came, but again, that might be something I would change later on down the line. Same thing, I didn't really crop or edit too many of the photos. I just kind of resized them and tried to make them align with some of the text. I didn't even mess with the different text size, so or the design for that matter. So I just kind of kept it pretty simple. And I feel like Wikispaces, at least for this basic user feature, doesn't provide you with a lot of the options that you can, or at least I know how to change a lot of those things. And so to just kind of conclude with everything, I know one of the things we're asked to do is to think about how I'm going to use this. So as I mentioned, I can definitely see myself sharing this with a lot of the teachers that I work with because they do work with students and especially with the park testing and things like that. They're asked to evaluate student skills in a limited amount of time. So I think directing them to some of these basic and easy kinds of practices that they can apply in their classes to get some quick reads about what the students know would be ideal. Um, I, I do think I would like to see some teachers use Poll Everywhere, especially because it's a free feature. But again, I don't know, how much access their students have to technology or if they're allowed to use any kind of cell phone in the class. So I might direct them to that, but that might not be something I would push for them to use. It would probably be more things like exit tickets or checklists or things like that. Even something like the 1 minute paper or the muddiest point, I think would be useful for some of the teachers. But overall, I think, giving teachers these tools that they could use would be really useful. And I feel like it would help teachers feel more maybe efficacious or they might feel more empowered and confident in what they're teaching, or they might have a better idea of what their students need and be able to provide additional instruction for that. So I do feel like it's a good resource. I definitely like to see them add discussion points too, as to what worked and what didn't, so that they could learn from each other, which would be another, I think, important and unstated goal for this project. Um, so yeah, that's about it. Thanks for viewing, and hopefully it's useful for you as well.